Hi, I'm Renee Tucci, AIFD, and when we're talking about decorating our homes, wreaths are by far the most popular decorating item. But let's look at an alternative to that, one that's very simple to make and just as beautiful on your front door. Today we're going to be making a birch branch swag that you can hang above your fireplace, on your front door, in an entryway, anywhere that needs a little decor. And so we're going to start with some birch branches. These are just regular dried birch branches that you can get at any local flower shop or branch vendor. And I have already trimmed them a little bit shorter, but we will need to trim them even shorter. But what you want to do when you first start out is take the branches and layer them together. Each branch has its own personality. It has its own laterals and little arms that shoot out here and there and everywhere. And so you want to make sure that you're putting together a pleasing pattern of your branches so that you don't have any rogue sticks pointing out anywhere. And also that it tapers, so it gets a little fatter in the middle and then tapers down to the end. So here's a nice long piece. That could be my finishing point. And don't be afraid to lay it in your hand as you're layering them and shift it up and down to see how the look changes. It may not seem like it's going to change very much, but believe it or not, the lines that these branches create, that really helps the eye move through the swag itself. And so you want to make sure you have everything laid out in a really nice and pleasing manner. And you can also, once it's together, if you decide you don't like a branch here or there, you can also just go through and clip out some little pieces. Okay. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with that. Let's see here. Actually, I think I'm going to do what I just said, and I'm going to clip out this piece. And that will give me more of a taper. That'll teach a right-hander to try to use clippers in her left hand. Doesn't work. There we go. Now we've got a little bit more of a pleasing taper, top to middle and then down to the bottom again. So at this point we want to go ahead and bind them as one. Now you can do this with a few different techniques. I would recommend one of two. This is spool wire. It's very, very common. You can find this either on a round spool or on a paddle at any sort of big box craft store. This happens to be a 20 gauge wire. You could also use one that's a little thicker. That would be an 18 gauge wire. Or my method is actually using this twisty tool. So this is actually sort of new on the market, and it's actually just now breaking into the American market, so I'm excited about that. But you may have seen these in the rebar section of Home Depot or any, home improvement store. So what we actually do is we'll take one of these twist tools, and you can see they come in a variety of colors and widths for different applications. And I want to make sure I get it wrapped all the way around. So I'm going to choose my longest piece for right now. And I'm going to take the two ends and I'm going to wrap it around the binding point, which is the area where I was holding it, where I want all of the branches to originate from. So I'm going to wrap it around the branches. And then I take the twisty tool, which has a hook, and I grab the twister, loop it through both sides, and pull. And each time I do that, it twists a little more and brings my branches together really snugly. Now you can twist too many times and just break the wire, so you want to avoid doing that. Once you feel like you've gotten a really good hold on all of your pieces here, just go ahead and tuck the tie back in there. And now you can see it's all being held together really nicely. So I actually have a companion video for this project where we talked about and we learned how to make the bow that's going to go on this swag. So this is the bow that I've created for that. Go ahead and look for that video on my channel. But before I go ahead and add the bow, I want to add some decorative items that will hang between the birch and the bow. So making a little sort of a decorative cluster. And I'm going to do that with some of the items I have behind me here. So for example, I've got some beautiful dried amaranthus, and it is just the perfect complement to our ribbon here. Now it's a dried material, so it's going to be just fine. It's going to keep living on looking like this for some time, and as long as it's cared for and not weathered, you'll get some extended life out of this. I'm also going to pull some oats and some bunny tails for some texture and added layers of color. And additionally, I'd like to add some of this kiwi vine in here. Now, I know we already have one type of branch, and so you might think a second type would be overkill, but I do think that it will give some really interesting line and movement to the entire design. Check out that piece. How neat is that? So if we imagine this piece being laid over the birch with the other items, it's going to be really beautiful. So we're definitely going to use this piece, and perhaps this piece as well. Yeah, that's a great piece. Okay, we're going to put these aside, and let's start to cluster our items together. So this is going to come together very similar to how we did our birch branches. Just layer them together, leaving some longer than the other. Let's get our amaranthus in here. Now the amaranthus is really heavy in comparison visually to the other dried items that we're using. So you want to make sure that you kind of space that out and you're not just having sort of a clump. That's not going to look very pleasing. So I'll take my different elements and play with them, move some to the front, some to the back, until I'm happy with how this is all laying. Okay, and now I want to add my kiwi vine. So I'm actually going to take the kiwi and add that in to the cluster behind. Just like that. And then maybe this other gnarly piece will go over top and sort of have some of the pieces worked into the open area of the branch. So that adds some real volume and interest in our decorative piece. Now I'm going to put these together with this item, which is bind wire from the Smithers Oasis Company. This is paper covered wire. It's a little gentler than straight up wire. So when you're working with materials like this, which are a little softer and could be bent or even broken by a firmer wire, this is a nice choice. So I just take the bind wire and I wrap it around there a few times and then give it a twist so that everything stays in place. And then I'm going to take it and lay it on the swag right where I want it, making sure that everything is kind of tangled in just the right ways. Now I'm going to take another piece of bind wire and attach that to the main bundle. Now our bow is going to cover most of these mechanics, but you do want to keep your binding points close together so you don't have to worry about having to cover your different attachment points. So again, bind wire up and around the entire unit, and then twist. And wrap it around 2 or 3 times. Give it a good twist. Make sure it's all really attached. Okay, so far, this is our swag, which is coming out really beautifully. Alright, so now I'm going to trim off the tails of the bind wire. And I'm going to trim the tail from that original twist that we made, just so there's not too much excess hanging off there. Any wires that are sticking up, if you use a needle nose plier and just turn it into the bundle, that will make sure you don't poke yourself later. And then we'll take our bow and take the 2 legs that are on from the wire that you used to create it with, and wrap it right around that binding point. Now sometimes I use my thumb. I put my thumb right in the middle of the middle loop and press it into the bundle so that I'm sure I've got the bow as close as possible to the item we're attaching it to. Bring the wires around back and twist. If you're not sure if you're getting a good twist, you can always use a pair of needle nose pliers just to help you with that. And then again, we'll cut the excess. Actually, no, we will not cut the excess. We will use the excess to create the hook from which our swag will hang from. So we'll take the legs, any wire that is left, bend it back down and wrap it around your finger, and twist, leaving a hook for you to hang it with. And by using the bow wires to do that, you'll be sure that your bow is always hanging center. That can be difficult if you attach the hook and the bow separately, to make sure that you have a nice centered bow. So that's the trick, to use the same wire for both. Okay, looking good. Now I just have a few more items that I want to add to this, and for that I'm actually going to glue them in. So I have some hot glue here that's melted down in a skillet, a non-stick skillet, and this is actually called pan glue, and it comes in little pillows that we've melted down. And I've got some blackbeard wheat to add to this swag, and I thought the colors were sort of perfect for this composition. Those black tips are really fun. So I'm going to take these in a cluster of 3 and trim away the bottom stem so that I have a smaller section here. And I'm going to dip them in a little bit of this glue. You always want to protect your work surface. That's why I've got a piece of cardboard under my glue pan here. And slide that wheat up into the bundle, the binding point bundle. And when I did that, I slid one piece in a little further than the next, so even the wheat is tapered, similar to how the swag is itself. And I'm going to do that one more time. These I'm going to leave a little bit longer. And I'm going to feed them up through the center area of the swag so that I have really good mix of materials, so it doesn't look like these were added as an afterthought. So it looks like they belong in there. The dried items are so lightweight, they take to gluing really well. So there we have that. And then I want to add just a little bit of softness to it. So I've got this dried grass material here. And this is really great. A little bit goes a long way with this. So I'm going to add some of this just below the bow to soften that area. Again, we're going to dip it right into the glue. Just get a little bit of glue on the ends and maybe lift the bow, add the grass in underneath, and then put the bow back down just to make sure we're really hiding any connection points that we see there. Oh, that's really beautiful. Adds an entirely new layer of texture and color, and it's just really special. So at this point, I'm just going to trim the tops of my birch just a little bit. I'm actually pretty happy with them. They're not too long, but I want to finish them a little nicer. Okay, so once you've gotten your tops trimmed, just do any last minute zhuzhing with your ribbon and your elements, your layers, and make sure it's all laying exactly as you want it. The other benefit of having the wired ribbon is that you can kind of run your fingers around it and get a really nice smooth curve, and you can adjust that as needed. It will also most likely need to be adjusted once you get it to its final hanging spot as well. So I hope you've enjoyed our Birch Swag project and you've been inspired to create your own. Thanks for watching and have a great day.